Hi, I'm Luna, an artist in Burlington, and welcome to my BCA Artist Studio Tour. Right now, we're at The Hive on Pine Street, Burlington. I've been sharing a studio at The Hive for the last half year. We have several studios that share common space and kitchen, and it's nested in a larger building with other artists and craftspeople. While I mainly do visual art in the form of ink on paper and sculpture work, I also do performance and movement. The Common Space is an amazing space where I have hosted several events, from work in progress showings, hosting a friend's music show, and performance art rehearsal time. Currently, I'm working with dancer and performing artist C. Green. You can find their work here. They're choreographing a piece that we will be showing later this month. The last piece we collaborated on was inspired by a performance art idea that had been on my mind for the last few years. It takes movements from retro Shanghai fan dancing, as well as abstracting and manipulating images from lion dancing. When I'm not in the studio making my own visual artwork, I love being in dance pieces organized and choreographed by friends who are local dancers. Now let's go check out my studio. I share my studio with two other artists, Josie and Madeline. Josie and Madeline are also both artists who work in print, drawing, tattoo, and various other disciplines. My main medium is ink on paper and sculpture with non-traditional materials, such as liquid nail glue, expansion foam, hair, spit. But back to my ink on paper work. Here's a piece I made in 2020 called I Dreamt of My Nana, my paternal grandma, after her death. It has visual and conceptual themes that I find myself returning to. 3 years later, I'm still working with these themes. So as you can see, this piece is a long scroll of washi paper with simple ink drawings, and it's of a recurring dream that I would have of my grandma. In this piece, I wanted to create a sense of intimacy and effectively did so by guiding the reader to move along the piece to view it, and encouraging the viewer to get physically close to read the meticulously handwritten lines of English and Mandarin. Stemming from the piece that I made in 2020, I'm currently creating a new piece that weaves mythology with family oral histories, and I hope to create raw, tender emotions around belonging and unbelonging. The goal of many of my pieces, whether it's two-dimensional work or three-dimensional work, isn't factual representation of the stories or experiences themselves, but rather highlighting what it means to be alienated from heritage, to not fit into binaries or categories, and the misremembering of stories that make up the self. I like to work on multiple projects at one time because I often find that one project will grow stale or it needs some distance, and I will focus my attention on the other pieces or projects that feel more fresh. So a piece that I'm working on is this sculpture. This sculpture is funded by BCA Highlight, their New Year event. I was invited by Lydia Kern and Corinne Yance, two other artists, to participate in the New Year's big gay party. My creative process is often creating something that feels fresh and leaving it to resolve on its own. So sometimes I will finish a small piece, and other times I'll start one and find that I'm not too sure where it wants to end up. About a month ago, I was at the Queen City Steel metal scrapyard, where I often go to find free materials, and I found a whisk attachment. And I was inspired by the shapes of this whisk attachment and played around with it and created this hairy creature. And now it's the head or bulb to this flower stem alien creature. It's inspired by my own experience of being agender. This creature, it's not human nor flower, and it exists in a representation of a lake created by mucky hair. I find myself returning to lotus motifs often, not for any particular conceptual reason, just aesthetically. I love flowers. I love non-traditional materials like the nylon stockings that this flower is created from. The connective threads that I have found that link my very serious ink on paper work with my vibrant abstract sculptures are themes of unbelonging, mythical creatures and humans that have a life of their own. And I'm sure that these themes are related to how I grew up immigrating, the feelings of liminality and confusion across cultures, my gender, and essentially just not fitting neatly into constructs nor categories when it comes to race, gender, and sexuality. If you'd like to see my work, maybe even come by my studio or come to an upcoming performance art piece, you can find me here. Thanks for visiting my studio.